Hello and welcome to another edition of our Discover Love Academy. I am Jacqueline Nichols, the founder and creator, and also professional matchmaker with Discover Love Matches. I am very, very excited for this upcoming speaker as I created this amazing list of people that I wanted to work with. They signed up faster than I could even contact them. And I'm really excited because Leah was one of the very first people to register as an expert in our agency. And this means so much because I look for action takers that are eager and ready to support and connect with our amazing members. So I hope you have a pen and paper ready to open yourself up. This is a very powerful class that we're going to be sharing together because it's about opening yourself up to find your soulmate and make that soulmate connection. It's so important. So Leah, I want you to introduce yourself. Tell us what inspires you to be a part of our group. And we're going to dive into this amazing conversation.
Thank you. You know, I think the one thing I want to say right off the bat is what inspired me most about being part of the Love Academy was Jacqueline. I mean, I think that we had this great opportunity to meet a while back, and it just felt like synergy, of course. And my angels and her angels must have gotten together and divined that we needed to meet. And when they did, and we talked about, you know, the idea of purpose and passion, it was a good fit, I think, automatically. And I really commend her for showing up for all of you out there to give you guys the opportunity to really dig deep and create lasting relationships based on who you really are and what you're really looking for. And so for me, that was something that really struck a chord, and definitely part of the reason that I jumped on so quickly was I definitely want to be a part of that train. I want to be a part of helping people who really are looking to make their lives better on a holistic level, and that includes the people that they're sharing it with. So I was really excited to do that as the Oracle on Purpose. You know, I work with clients all over the world that are, you know, mission-driven entrepreneurs, you know, looking for clarity and confidence to take inspired leaps of faith. And, you know, there's no bigger leap of faith than the leap into love. And so, you know, I help my clients leap into faith, attracting money and opportunities and clients magically. But I often say that most of my clients in the last few years, I've had several of my clients fall in love and get married and have babies. And I kind of joke that, you know, I should have been called the love doctor because I you know, kind of unintentionally, if you will, started kind of creating that space to hold for people to really align with their soulmates. And that matters so much to me because I think when we're truly on purpose, we do really pull in to our sphere those people who really will support us and, you know, sometimes challenge us and bring us forward into the, like, our own fullness. So I'm really eager to kind of delve in today to talk a little about kind of how living from the power of your own unique life purpose can really help you to find that most aligned soulmate. So yeah, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that everybody's here. So, you know, I'm eager to share and follow up with any questions, but hopefully you guys will get some juicy, good tidbits to take away just as you're watching today.
You are exactly why I'm doing this. This is what's been such an honor and truly, truly a privilege to bring such powerful people to speak to our group. And I could just feel the goosebumps of everybody listening right now, just going, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, hold on, what am I going to get? You just feel the energy shifting as this conversation is unfolding. And we haven't even gotten to the juicy stuff. And that's what's so powerful. I really, really, really love it because myself being spiritually based and my business always began with a spiritual energy. It was because of my gift is why I became a matchmaker. So to be able to align with those that are actually gifted and not just say they are is huge to me. I'm very protective of what my members listen to and learn because I want the right positive influence. And I know, Leah, you come from a deep core being of your own authenticity, choosing to step up, choosing to have this relationship, choosing to have this life. So I really applaud you for saying and showing up so that everybody listening today can feel and enjoy your authentic spirit. So this is huge. And as you are already mentioning that you are that love attractor and you make these great opportunities come alive, what do you find that has brought you in that direction? What are some of the stories? Do you have any fun little juicy
Oh,
stories of
I do.
connections? It's
I
always good to start with
do.
that.
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of funny, today I've been married for 17 years and together with my husband for 22. So we've been in a very long standing, in my terms, relationship. But I actually, this is my second marriage, and I was married to my first husband for a very short time. So I know that there was a difference between those two marriages. But what's beautiful is that the clients that I work with, that one of my favorite stories is there was a woman that came in, and we were working on her, some of her blockages around feeling lonely and um, basically searching for love in the wrong place, right? She was having a lot of
Right.
dates and not finding her soulmate. And it's a beautiful story because as we were working together, she kept telling me about this neighbor of hers who was so kind to her. And one particular time she came into her session and told me that she had forgotten to take her garbage out, and he had gone in behind her little gate and taken all of her garbage out, and she was feeling very protective of her space. And as we were talking, the more she's talked about it, and then she recognized it, and I kind of had to bring her back to, well, isn't that interesting? Because prior to that, she'd been talking about she wanted somebody who'd take care of her. and so and so I said, well, isn't that interesting? You, last week in our session, we were talking about the fact that you were looking for somebody who would, kind of be your knight in a shining armor, even though you're a strong, beautiful, passionate woman who's, got all your stuff together. There was a piece of you that really wanted somebody who would want to step up and kind of take that role and take care of you and protect you. And so this gentleman then, shows up, and so it wasn't until we talked it through that she recognized it. And then she kind of
Exactly.
looked back at all of the things he'd been doing over that particular summer. And he had been basically kind of her guardian angel, watching out for her and doing
Right.
just small things to let her know that he was really, not only interested, but also really concerned for her well-being, and in a really kind and open and true way.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's kind of one of my fun stories, because after that conversation, she decided to just say yes to dinner, right? I mean, how hard is it to say yes to dinner?
Love
I said,
it.
what happens if you just say yes to dinner?
Right.
And
Exactly.
they have been together ever since. And so this was probably 2010, probably
Mm-hmm.
2010.
Wow.
And
It's huge.
he was from, and as a side benefit, she had wanted to travel, and he was from, and I don't know if it was Vietnam, or I think it was Vietnam, if
Mm-hmm.
not Bali, one of the two, Bali or Vietnam. Regardless, they traveled to both places.
Yeah.
So right after they kind of started to date, she ended up not knowing what to do about it. And he said, well, I'm leaving. I'm going back. So I think it was Vietnam. And she was just crushed, of course, thinking that,
Right.
here she kind of aligned this whole thing. And she got really upset about it, and she storms off, and we have another session and we're talking about it. And I said, well, is he leaving for good? So I'm like, did you
Yeah,
ask any of the
exactly.
follow-up questions? And she's like,
Details.
no, I just got upset and I left. And I said,
Oh.
you probably want to have some more, for me, of course, being the Oracle says to me, why didn't you ask the follow-up question? Well,
Yeah.
how long are you going to be gone? And so I said, the Oracle's, I'm just getting the insight that you should probably ask some follow-up questions. And it
Right.
turns out he was heartbroken, because what he wanted to say is, will you go with me?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Will you go?
I totally believe.
And she had no idea that was the next step, but
Mm-hmm.
because she was kind of stuck in her own, past and her own fears of
Right.
past relationships and abandonment and things like that. So of course we
Mm-hmm.
worked a little bit on that, but the beauty of it was, when she calmed her mind and stayed present, she actually received the biggest gift of all, which was really to find somebody who was a match for her, that she had been, living next to, I think she said originally, for like a year and a half before they actually, so like,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
it was one of those things where, of course, timing being what it is, that
Right.
she had the opportunity to take advantage of that. Sorry, hold on, let me stop that right now. That's so funny. And so, um, I think that that's one of those magical moments where I
Mm-hmm.
got to be in a place where I had the opportunity to hold space for someone.
Absolutely.
To shift
so important to hold
what
space.
they were focusing on, right? Because
right.
it's like so easy to get kind of tangled up in those past experiences and believe that they're the only way things happen. So it was a really beautiful story. And I know that they're, you know, they were gone for a long time, and then they come back, and, you know, through Facebook and whatnot, I've seen pictures of them very happily. I don't think they're married, but they're together still all these years later. So yeah.
Well, and I love the pieces you brought in on that comment was so much of what we don't even notice. I have a wonderful couple that got married a few years ago. And as I was looking for her match, she kept telling me about this sweet gentleman down the street. And I was like, you know, he sounds like a catch. You should do something. And then when some other lady asked him to dinner, she's like, oh, no, whoops. She just thought he would keep waiting for her to figure it out. And she was busy doing her life. And, you know, it's so wonderful because they talk about how connecting and working with me that I lined up the pebbles for them on their pathway. And I was the only non-family member invited to their wedding. And it was because they showed up for it. And the thing is that they showed up for love. They showed up for their relationship. They showed up to make it into a long term. And so often we don't see that as just everyday people, but when you're working with an expert, it's amazing how, hold on, you've been asking for it. Your person's right next to you. It keeps doing stuff, but you're not even noticing it. Yeah. And then holding space for that person was huge. I'm so glad you did that for the two of them and saw the light on it.
Yeah. You know, and it's just such a fun experience, really. I mean, I'm sure you can agree. It's when you see someone really stand in that place of having something they've been desiring for so long, and it happens so sweetly that it's like, isn't it nice?
Natural and
beautiful.
Isn't
it nice when it can unfold in a way that doesn't feel so tumultuous?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I think that's one of my favorite stories. I mean, I've got a handful, but that's the one that I think, even though like it didn't, at least to my knowledge, I haven't received an invitation anyway. They didn't get married.
It's however, the union is committed. That's what
that
matters.
They were really committed. Yeah, and that she, and more importantly, she saw something different about how love could be.
I love
she
that.
saw that too, which is
that
great.
Is what we're here for. And that's what every time as someone's listening right now, I want you to stop and look around and be like, who's kind of been in my life? Who's being involved? Because we take people for granted. We just assume that they're there and nobody else is going to notice them and they're just a cool friend, but you know, it's all okay. The reality is there's so much more. There's so much more that's available if we just allow ourselves to witness what's often right in front of us. It happens so often for clients. So I love that you're talking about this and you're really putting a strong light on it, because it's easy to make assumptions and then to stop and ask the questions makes the big difference. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm excited to get feedback after this video to start thinking, who's listening right now going, ooh,
yeah,
you know, there's a really nice guy I talk to all the time, or this really pretty lady at the restaurant is so sweet. I wonder why.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because there's another woman that I worked with recently who we got on this whole thing about colors of people. So that's neither here nor there, but there were these things where we called them blue people, right? So for her, she was a really fiery person. So she was really attracted to really fiery men. But really what the Oracle said is what you need is a blue person, a calm. And as I was talking to her, her face lights up, you know, like you're saying, like she suddenly gets this, oh, there's this guy. And she's
love it.
And it was like, she's like, I always thought he was just too nice. Right? The too nice guy. And I said, well, you know, you obviously have free will, but I will let you know that the Oracle's kind of like shining this big blue light saying, you know, go for the blue guy. You know, he's the one that's going to balance you. Because I think that oftentimes, you know, we always hear that old adage, you know, opposites attract.
Right.
And while there can be some benefit to that, I think it's more like pairs fit. Yeah. It's not so much opposites attract, it's pairs fit.
Pairs fit,
because I think that it's not, you know, it doesn't have to be diametrically opposed to you. But that there are places where the puzzle pieces fit. Exactly. And sometimes that means you're, you know, a fiery person, and you need that person who's calm and cool and collected to bring you balance.
Right.
And even though it feels like, oh, they're quote, like for her, she was like, I always thought maybe he would be too boring. Like she liked everything about him.
Right.
And he was this great guy. He was very handsome, had all the, bells checked off, except that he wasn't fiery. He wasn't this passionate, wild guy. And she's like, I think I know, like literally had promised before we got off the call that she was going to go call this person back. So
good.
I think that that's, another piece of it is really, it's not just so much understanding that there are people that are aligned with us, like just match us, but it's like, how does it fit together?
Right.
Do they lift you up in places where, you need either that encouragement or the reflection, or do they hold you in a space that they kind of keep you accountable, right? So or bring you out of your own, if they bring you out of your own shell and allow you to stand more fully in who you are. So
and I love how you're describing this, because so many times people say, like, I want somebody exciting because they'll help my quiet side, or I want somebody who is calm because they'll calm my wild side. We don't want somebody to have a job. We want somebody to not have this big responsibility. Is there some pounding in the background? It keeps getting louder and louder.
I'm sorry, they are building a building next to me. And
oh my goodness, right, those boys need to just tune it down.
Unfortunately, this is my office space, and
okay, so that makes sense. No, that's fine. That. I was like, what? Are somebody getting excited outside your door?
Yeah, I was hoping they'd be done for the day, but not so. Now that it's sunny
we will
in Portland,
tap them out, and obviously they are doing a message to get some love. So we will send love vibration to them. That's awesome.
They're hammering in the points, right? That's
I love it. They're like, we are owning this. I was like, where is that coming from? Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
That's funny.
Well, that's the thing that, when people step into their essence and they choose to show up for it and they choose to see the signs, things are available. People are so walking blindly. So having you come in with your oracle perspective and your openness and your way to look, that it's not necessarily about finding your opposite. It is about finding that balance and finding where you both bring out the best qualities in each other. And that is such a great example. So what I want to find out is, what do you feel when you are saying things like, we're here? Why are we here? What is our connection? With that whole soulmate vibration. Talk a little bit about that. I just feel like I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about your energetic moments, because, I'd love that you even brought in that you were married before and now even this long-term marriage. It's so great because so many of our experts have such beautiful love stories to share, to give everybody watching that there's total hope and there is possibility and there is longevity in this journey.
Absolutely. I think that, it's actually kind of before I got on this call, I kind of was teasing my husband and I said, okay, so how have we done this for 22 years, And he kind of joked. He said, well, I think we've always said we were soulmates, first of all. When we met, it's kind of a, one of those funny stories where I had been married, like I said. And when I decided to get married, one of the things that I didn't do at the time was listen to my oracle. So, in fact, she was screaming and pitching a fit like crazy. I mean, I was getting, to give you an idea, on the day that I was getting married, I was in my house, my first marriage. I was in my house. I was by myself. I opened my garage door and they are blacktopping the road in front of my driveway.
Oh, we did a little bit of a block.
Right? Yeah. And it just kind of went on from there. I actually had to drive my brand new car through hot black tar to get to the wedding. I mean, I don't think the universe could have done more to get me to stop than it tried to do. And so I recognize I'm fortunate in the sense that I do have the oracle on my side, but I also don't listen sometimes, right? I mean, I clearly did not listen, and she was doing everything she could. And so what was beautiful about that for me in the end of all of that was recognizing that I was reaching for a solution, like you're saying, right?
I like that. Yeah, that's true.
I wasn't looking for a soulmate. I was reaching for a solution. I was trying to get away from my family. He was trying to get away from his family. We were both young. It wasn't about us at all. And so that's the first thing I think is a big warning sign is, and oftentimes with my clients, what I remind them of is like, when you show up, when you are 100% clear about who you are and what you want and where you're going, and you continue to convey that, then the right person will say, I love that about you. That's fantastic. I'm in for that journey too. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be the same journey. It doesn't mean they're going to have exactly the same things going on. And that's basically how my husband and I met. I had a friend. After that divorce, I was committed, A, to listening to the Oracle from now on, B, to really showing up, to being 100% of who I was, just for me. And so I was living by myself. I had a friend who said, oh, you got to meet my friend. And so the night that we got together, we played pool. And what's funny about that story is I'm not even a really good pool player, but we decided we all hang out and play pool together. And as we're playing pool, it was literally, as soon as I saw him, like I had seen my best friend who I'd been missing for 23 years. Like, oh my gosh. And literally we both kind of joke about it now that we're in the background for both of us. We were like, oh my gosh, there you are. Yeah. Like it was literally like, hey, I'm so glad to see you. Energy of just connection instantly. And I really think that that's because I was 100% in on who I was. And so I wasn't awkward. I didn't care if he liked me or not. I wasn't trying to do anything but show up and have fun and be myself. And so we were very fortunate because then, he laughs because I was a little bit overcommitted, I might say, to that idea since I had already been divorced and he had never been married. So I the very night we meet, I am telling him all the things that I expect from a relationship. And really we stayed up the entire night and we talked and we talked and we talked and we talked and we slept for about half an hour before both of us had to go to work. And that's it. We just talked the whole night through. But it was like, oh my gosh, both of us have to go to work in 45 minutes. We should probably lay down and go to sleep, pretend to go to sleep, because that didn't even work. But the reality of it is after that, we've been together ever since. That was 22 years ago.
Exactly.
In June. And what it really was, our foundation was set up on who are you and what do you want? Who are you and what do you want? Where do you want to go? And what I loved about him as a human being was that he knew who he was and where he wanted to go. And in that space, he allowed me to say who I was and where I wanted to go. And he was like, that's awesome. And I was like, that's awesome for you. And so here we go along, creating that life together with that deep respect and admiration for each other. That said, I'm your best friend. Yeah. And a funny story about 6 months later was when we first, considered that we were dating and we kissed and it was a whole big thing. Well, we were with a bunch of friends who were playing pool. And so they had seen us all together. We'd all hung out. We were young kids hanging out at the local pool/pub place. And so one of our friends had seen us. He had a good shot or something. And so he made this great shot. And I ran over and I gave him this big kiss. And she was sitting between us. We walk up and we kiss like this in front of her. And she's sitting at the bench and she looks at us and she looks up and she goes, I thought you guys were just best friends. And we looked at each other and we said, we are. And we happen to be lovers too. And it was such a funny thing because it was yes, exactly.
It's so important. Yes. Yeah. And this is what's important is that you showed up prepared to show up. Where people keep showing up kind of half in, half out. They're always looking for their exit strategy. And you're able to see that the first marriage was not supposed to happen. You guys were not united to be together. This one, you are focused on that. So in that, when you're talking, I'm hearing, and I love it because you've given me some, questions and ideas to think about ahead of time. And what are some of those, your message and what you're sharing? How are you representing yourself? How are you showing up? How do you do it in a way that you know that it's the spiritual direction? Because if you don't know your spiritual message, you don't, I have 4 fat cherubs I can listen to. You have the Oracle. We kind of cheat a little here because we've got a little inside scoop. So we know that. But yes, for people that don't have our ability to see some of these things, what are some of the steps to give to get that message so we can know, hey, hold on, that is one we want to acknowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing really, and this is something I work with my clients because I always want to work with, what is your unique life purpose? I think once you figure that out, honestly, there's nothing else that you need to figure out because it is basically the litmus test for which you hold everything up. And
It's
it comes
true.
from understanding, like, if you could do nothing else right now with your life, and of course, you know, the infamous money is no object kind of a thing,
Right.
what would you do with your time? What would it mean? You know, what would you want to give back? What are the things that you get really excited for? And I have a trick, because people still get kind of that, I have no idea. Like, that's such an overwhelming question. So I say, let me ask you, is there ever been a time, so I'll ask all of you watching, think about a time in your life when you were so consumed by what you were doing, the time went away, you forgot to eat lunch, you know, you forgot to go to bed, whatever that was, and then look at what it was you were doing. And what was it, whether that was, you know, hobby or your work or a person you were with or an endeavor you were, you know, engaged in, and what components of whatever your view of spirituality is
Right.
existed in that time. You know, was it beauty? Was it peace? Was it connection? Was it love? Was it laughter? Was it joy? You know, what filled you up? Because something filled you up, right?
That's powerful.
Something was
Yes.
sustaining you during that time, so much so that you forgot everything else that would normally, quote unquote, sustain you. So what was it? And when you know
Wow.
what that is, then you know that that's where you come from. That's your purpose. That's what you're here to
That's that
create
core
more of.
essence.
It's the core of what you're doing here.
That's
And that,
huge.
and
Yeah.
when you have that piece, then you can build on it, right? So you can make sure that it exists in a relationship, it exists in the work that you do, it exists in your relationship with your children and your family and your friends, and they become truer and more enriched by your standing in alignment with that. So that would be like, that's
Right.
one of my like first like really simple, you know, not
It
necessarily easy,
is.
but it's very simple and elegant way of kind of getting
Okay.
anyone to kind of, any of you to really think like, what was that time when I really just felt like time disappeared?
Okay. So if you've got like, because everyone's listening right now
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, so do I go backwards or forward when I'm thinking about this? Do I stop and go, okay, when was the last time just disappeared and before I knew it, it was like, where did the day go? Or is it more of, okay, now when I go forward, I think about, okay, where am I, you know, getting caught up in really glorious moments? How do you kind of align that? Where do you start that process?
Well, I think the first thing, it's usually typically easier for people when they can think backwards, right? Because it's like, it's an experience they've already had.
Right.
I'm going to guess that you and I probably have a similar feeling about time. It doesn't really exist. So it's kind
Yeah.
of, it's okay to forward project.
Yes.
I think that the key for anyone is it's really about tapping into the emotion of it. So if you're capable of envisioning a time where that would be true for you, and what would you want to do with all of that time, then that would be great. So you don't really have to have one if you can't instantly think of one.
Right.
I think
Okay.
more often than not, people would surprise themselves. I think you gotta all surprise yourselves if you really think about a time. And you may have to go back a ways. You may have to go back to when you were little, you know, younger anyway, before the job, right?
Yeah,
Because that can
exactly.
kind of be distracting. But even people that are like, you know, in the midst of really big endeavors and who are like corporate leaders, or, you know, there's still those times when they step away and they've had either that amazing vacation or just that quiet time to reflect, and they're working on something that's not necessarily tied to what they do every day,
Right.
that really gets them back in touch with who they are. And maybe it's
Absolutely.
nature. Yeah. So, and the thing, that the beauty of that really is that when you get that piece, that's when you have the matching puzzle piece, right? And
Right.
it doesn't mean it's the same again. It just simply means that you bring yourself to a vibration in that moment that somebody else can relate to being in the same vibration of. And sometimes
So
those match. Yeah.
exactly. So what I'm curious, like, and energetically it's coming up as we're talking is, okay, so let's say I'm going out with my girlfriends and I want to make sure I meet some cute people that are not jackhammering in the background.
Yes.
And, you know, what I love about that is it's like that you want to be able to have people, you know, to tune out, but to tune in. Like, what do you say before you go out so that you're in your zone, that you are looking out into the area to feel, who do you need to I spy with? You know, who are you supposed to be looking at when you were in that? Because that's so powerful in your messaging as you're talking right now. Like, how do you bring that forward so that when you are in that situation and you're like, I'm with my girlfriend, we are having a good time, but we so want to go and flirt and get out, but sending the signals to the right energy.
Right. The right energy. I think I think again, it just kind of, well, I think it's twofold. I think on the one hand, if you're really 100% stepping into your own before you head out the door, then you're going to be magnetizing that to you. So there's that. I think the other piece is we can recognize in others when our energy is growing and when it's deflecting. So I think that that's a part of just looking around you, and you think about anybody that you've really kind of connected with. It doesn't have to be a sexual relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It could be somebody in your work that you're like, gosh, when I get around that person, they're spiky.
Mm-hmm.
In our house, we call it spikes. Your spikes are out, right?
Yeah.
So there's just that kind of, you just feel like tension happen, or you feel just a way of wanting to kind of avoid that experience. And other people, you feel what we call kind of leaning in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of creating a space to pull you towards them.
Okay.
Right? So I think it's about being aware. Like if you know your own energy, then you're much more confident in understanding or experiencing somebody else's energy.
Right.
So it could be just about getting comfortable with that,
mm-hmm.
in the sense of like, before you even head out the door, going like understanding what you're calling in.
Mm-hmm.
Are you calling in flirtation?
Yes.
Are you calling in intensity? Are you calling in, just deep conversation?
Right.
What are you calling in before you walk out the door? And then,
so those are questions to ask yourself before you leave. Is that
absolutely?
Is it journal? Is it a top list, or just get quiet? How would you?
To me, I think that I always suggest doing a lot of mirror work, because I feel like when we do mirror work, we can really see ourselves shift and our own energy shift.
Explain a little bit about mirror work, because I'm thinking our listeners might not have had that experience.
That's true.
I'm excited for you to share that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I can explain what I do and I consider mirror work. So for me, it would be basically to step into your mirror, of course, and if you're going out, as Jacqueline's talking about, then to think about the fact that right before you get ready, you get yourself however you'd like to have yourself appear, and make sure that you're comfortable literally in your own skin. But as you're looking at yourself, rather than looking at yourself just externally, but really start to look deep into your own eyes. It's a very amazing experience, and we rarely do it. Like, we can look ourselves over in the mirror, but we don't always like look at ourselves. So even just taking a minute, and that's a long time, believe me, if anybody tries this at home, just know that minute will feel like an eternity if you've never done it before. But taking the minute to really see what you see in yourself. And it's a strange message, but the reality of it is, when you really look into your own eyes, you can take the time to say in your own head what I love, what I appreciate, what I value about you, right? So here's the thing, use the word you when you're talking. Because of course you're looking at the mirror image. What I do appreciate, love, and value about you are these things. And the key is that for that minute, you're not breaking eye contact.
Ooh. Good.
That's a long time.
It is, with your own self-eye contact.
Yes,
I love it.
I mean,
that's
think
awesome.
About, and so what that does is, when you get out of your space and you go out into the public and you connect with someone, you're going to be practice at looking someone in the eye. How often do we even do that?
Right.
And then, because you've done the work yourself before you started, you can send that same transmission. By an eye, by a glance. It doesn't have to be the minute. Don't stare for a minute. That will be awkward for most people. But even just a really nice 10-second look and really seeing someone can give you a sense for them that they're really being acknowledged. And everybody wants to be acknowledged. So more often than not, you're going to have some sort of response from that person. And that follow-up response is then what you get to choose to react to. Right? So you kind of pull them to find out what that energy level is for you. And if it is, like I said, spiky, or there's some kind of disconnect there, then you can simply smile and move on. Right? But if there's that lean in feeling, if there's something warm about it, then you can move forward.
Yes.
And that is
Okay. That
a
makes
way
a
of
lot of
kind of,
sense.
yeah, breaking down that barrier and having more true connections, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
what's really powerful is just, I say this in many of our conversations with so many different experts. You got to love you in order for somebody else to be ready to love you. So if you can't even look at you in the mirror, just like pull back the layers and look at yourself and ground your energy and make conscious decisions before you head out, you're missing out on possibilities of aligning with another person. We're just going and we're turboing. So I love this spiritual alignment that you are saying, to really look within. I mean, we put our makeup on, we do our hair, we put the suit on, whatever it is that we do just to step back and go, hey, how do I look? But we forget so often to actually look at ourselves. And that mirror work sounds really powerful. I can't wait to get feedback from everybody listening going, hold
Yeah.
on, I haven't really looked at myself. I just made sure I had, my teeth brushed and I didn't have broccoli. And,
Yeah.
we forget sometimes to really look within deeply. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is, if you're out and about, you can do it again. I mean, it's a minute, right? So if you're out and you're getting a funk kind of feeling about a night, you can just go refresh yourself and recenter and rebalance and get back to that place. Because like I said, if you want to show up, if you want your soulmate to show up, you have to show up too. So,
It's a random thought, but yes, exactly. And I love that you're saying you can realign it, because I have definitely, you walk into sometimes a restaurant or a bar or a social group and you're just like, ugh, there's something wrong. And it's not necessarily the group or the bartenders or the staff. It's maybe one person that's just got a weird energy vibe. And when they leave, it changes. And on a spiritual level, we, see this different energy around us. But it's important to realize, because sometimes I've seen people, they walk into one of our events and I'm so excited to meet them, but they have made themselves physically sick at the thought of walking into something, meeting a ton of strangers that they have not gotten an opportunity to actually experience. They walk in, what's in it for me, versus coming in and saying, hey, how can I meet people? And those that walk in ready to meet people have a glorious time, and it is powerful. You can tell who's doing the mirror work on how they enter into an activity with strangers.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yes, that is so, so big. So I love this comment that you've made about how you're looking for your soul contract, not a sales contract.
Oh, man.
This is awesome. As soon as I read it, I just busted out, because I feel like people lock into certain agreements thinking that there's this time frame or these expectations. You have such a great way of expressing this. So dive in and I just feel like everybody's listening and ready to go, hold on, what is she going to say?
Well, I think that piece of understanding, like, especially maybe, okay, perhaps as we get older, we're not the youngest people out there, perhaps looking at, either new loves or new relationships. We often have our own laundry list of things we're requiring, right? So we kind of put that in front. It's almost like somebody has to go through all those loops or hoops, if you will, to make it work. And the other piece of it is we don't often share what those are. So even if we have them, we're not really communicating what those are. And I like to say, like my clients, it's like, you don't have an agreement until you have an agreement. So it's like we can pretend that, like, we can think, well, I really want a man who, has a certain income or has a certain lifestyle, or even I don't want a man who owns a boat or whatever.
Right.
And
yes.
we hold those in our own mind, and those are the little things we're checking off as we're meeting people, as you said, right? It's like, okay, never mind, or whatever. However, the opposite can also be true. Like, we can say we want something in maybe a conversation early on, and we never hear back that we got agreement about it, right? So let's talk about kids. Let's just say, for example.
Right.
So early on, I say I want kids in a conversation we've had, and you didn't stop me. So my assumption is you also want kids. But as we get nearer and nearer to the point where we're having talks about perhaps getting married and settling down, this has not really been discussed. And so there was no real agreement. Instead, what it is I signed a contract in my own mind that I picked you based on the fact that I thought you wanted to have kids.
Right.
So it's not a
Exactly.
contract. It has to be an agreement. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like this agreement has to start from actually having real conversations about what our hopes and desires are, but also getting all the way through to an agreement about it.
Exactly.
And we don't often do that.
Right. No, this is
Yeah.
big. Very,
Yeah.
very
So I
big.
think that the nice piece of it can be that once you have agreement, then it's smoother to move towards that. Even if it's something that's about like, okay, well, when we retire, we're going to go live on the coast.
Mm-hmm.
And someone says, I always wanted to live in the desert. Like these are opposite
Right.
things. Did we ever even talk about that? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's about like looking at the things that really matter most, which of course goes all the way back to the purpose piece, right? Like if you're
Right.
living your life on purpose and you have a vision for where you're going, then sharing that vision and making sure you have agreement. And it may be agreement that, okay, well, maybe for 6 months we live on the coast and 6 months we live in the desert,
Right.
but we
Mm-hmm.
have an agreement. We understand where we're
Exactly.
coming from and what we desire. Instead of, again, it's that lack of finishing that piece of saying, let's come to agreement.
Mm-hmm.
For me and for my husband, it's been a huge piece for us, and in our own longevity is we don't walk away from those kind of conversations until there's an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
by
like
agreement,
that.
both of us are saying, yes. So what do we decide?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What did we as a couple decide about this thing? And then we agree whatever it is. So then we know, well, we decided this. So that's the
Right.
direction we're going.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that piece of it is our souls really do know what we're supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to be doing in our
Yeah.
lives. And if we don't appreciate that, we can cause ourselves to sabotage by, creating these, like I said, false contracts with each other
Mm-hmm.
that haven't really been negotiated to the point of agreement. And
Right.
when we honor our soul's contract for, our soul's agreement for what we're supposed to be doing in our lives, and we bring that to the table honestly, then we give our partner the opportunity to be a part of that conversation.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely. Both people show up.
yeah, and also to let them both be cheerleaders, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, I just went to a conference where people were, making decisions about what to do with this product that they were getting. And many of these people, a handful of women, in fact, were really worried about having a conversation with their spouses about
Yeah.
making these big, big decisions. And I thought to myself, I'm very honored that I could go into that making my decision, knowing where we're going in our lives together, that as
Exactly.
long as it made sense with where we're going, I don't have to worry about those little agreements because I have an overarching agreement with my husband about where I'm going, what I'm doing.
Right.
Right. And it's
That
based
is
on who I
huge.
really am.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, I think that's a piece of that puzzle that really makes for strong relationships in the long
Right.
run. And I think it starts when you do start meeting each other, right? It starts if you're really showing up, then those little conversations you have along the way, those are the opportunities to start setting those agreements in place.
Exactly. And on that spiritual level, it is learning about yourself, understanding your message. And really, I like how you talk about how the overall message that you've created as a couple, the little answers, because it does still give you your voice, but it is to support the whole as a couple and hearing your own message. So on a spiritual journey, it's so important that people align themselves before they start dating in a way that they understand so that they can show up and actually know what their voice is supposed to be. What so often happens, everyone's kind of mushes from one relationship to the next. They don't really know. They kind of wait for the other person to make the decisions. And then later they kind of go, ooh, I didn't really like that one. Or they, as you were saying earlier, and I love this, where they don't actually want to ask the question, do you want kids or not? Or where do you want to live? Because they don't want to know the answer. They just think if they stay together long enough, the person will kind of sway to theirs.
Oh, man,
And that's
right?
not spiritually aligned by any means. So you have really brought up some very important details in getting that base foundation, but also building it longer when you're talking to your soulmate. Those conversations are more fluid and they have mutual benefits of purpose. There isn't one leading the reins. It's both of you doing the work.
Absolutely. And I think that, like you're saying, Jacqueline, as far as the idea of understanding what your soul's purpose is, gives you the power to really be clear.
Absolutely.
And that work looks like really showing up for yourself. I think the mirror work is a big piece of that. And I would venture to guess, for those of you watching this, that if you try that technique, not only will you probably have a different experience when you get out there to, meet up and connect with people, but you're going to start having a better connection with yourself. And ultimately, that's who you want to be most in love with.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. So, thank you for saying that. That's so important. We need permission to realize it. And on a spiritual level, too many people they're disconnected. They kind of put even their spiritual side or their own wishes and goals and dreams on hold. They think they can swoop back, but it's so important. And you're bringing this up really clearly to fully represent yourself. Make conscious decisions before you leave, because that's how you can tell the universe to say, hey, look, right, your man is across the way, 3 people over. You might not hear it as verbally as we do, but you're going to feel that moment. And I love your comment about spiky people or leaning in. And that's just what it is. There are just some people that are truly that, and you listen, and it is okay. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them great. It means that vibration energy does not align with you. And that is okay, because there are so many more people out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have to say, kind of full disclosure, it's not always, roses for us too. 22 years, there's been our moments. And what I think that has really helped us to maintain a deep relationship is that foundation we set so many years ago. Because even when we are, when we're angry or we're frustrated with each other, the bottom line is we really are each other's soulmates and best friends.
Exactly.
I want nothing more than his ultimate success, and vice versa. I want him to have the best life ever.
Exactly.
I just happen to know it happens to be with me. So,
right. But that is such a truthful statement, because when you really, really love somebody on a deep soul level, you want the absolute best for them. But you also know that the combination of the two of you is only better. So you're not coming from ego, you're coming from authenticity of seeing the vibration of the two together will grow and multiply.
Yes, absolutely. And that's when we are, we really do see our lives thrive as well. We can, when we're pulled together from that place of locking arms, on a soul level, then we're able to kind of move through any challenges together, even if they're with each other, because we give each other space, knowing that we're going to come back to that center, that center is what's holding us, in alignment with what our future intentions are for each other and for our lives.
Absolutely. I love that you're bringing this in a way that shows you both have definitely created an energy of no exit strategy. That conversation is about, you've made a pledge, you've made a commitment, but this isn't just a deal that you sign off and you don't go back to. And you keep circling back and you keep aligning with it. You keep checking back in with each other. And that is what, as everyone's listening, everyone's at different stages of their own relationship journey. And also sometimes people beat themselves up because they maybe exited a relationship too soon because they were too focused on the exit strategy. There's all these paths that we carry. We have an openness to the future. But on your incredible oracle guidance, it is really, really powerful to stop and see how you talk differently when you're looking at the longevity than when you're looking for the temporary.
Absolutely. And I think that piece of how we communicate with each other in life, all of us, I think, every one of us has the opportunity to really say from our heart space what we really are about. And when we do, I honestly believe that that's what the universe is looking for from us. And so the spirits are really moving us forward more gently, not necessarily easily, but gently, or maybe more directly is probably a better way of saying it, when we're in alignment with that. So I hear what you're saying, and I know that's the case. Some people feel like because of their own, maybe their their own past experiences, they might cut something off short that they feel like what they were even leaning into, because it's scary to feel something they haven't felt like that before. And also, I believe that if the, if it's meant to be, that person will circle back around into your sphere, because that's a time for you to grow. Because everything about this, relationships in general, is to help us grow. Like, we don't show up together just to have an experience. We show up so that we can grow. And
Right.
that, I think, will come to be, if it's meant to be, or something better, which I always like to say. It might be that that person was 90% of what really would be a good fit for you, and there's somebody out there that's 100% better. So
Right. There's
yeah.
somebody that you left the last one for a reason, for a different reason than you probably realize, but on your spiritual journey, there's more of a story that was supposed to come out, but it's supposed to be with somebody else. And so it's okay to let go of the past to make room for the future. So you're bringing in so much great energy, and I just know I'm just feeling all the energy vibration from all of the listeners, and being in that space of really stopping and aligning each person and saying, hey, I'm here for my love opportunity. How about you? And where are you at? So we're almost out of time, and I want you to be able to tie up all of this goodness and wisdom and just oracle energy with a bow. So what would you like to send our amazing group out? Challenges or excitement or positivity, as they are about to just like go, okay, I'm ready. I got to get to work. I got to find my mirror.
What's that thing? Yeah. I think that, honestly, if I were to, if you were saying to me, what's the one thing, right? What's the one thing about all of this? I think that knowing that you have the power inside of you to really create the best soulmate ever imagined, because you create yourself. You create how you show up. And when you do that, then you become someone else's best soulmate. And without it, you're going to be, fumbling around for a lot longer. So the key really is to turn it inward and to really listen to your own inner guidance, because despite the fact that Jacqueline and I have an extra added bonus of a gift, I believe everybody has that inner intuition that will tell them when they're on the right track. And I encourage you to listen to that. I encourage you to hear your own soul speaking to you, so that you can make the best decisions based on that. And once you do that, you'll see that the universe really will open up and align more and more for you in ways that you'd never imagined before. And that your soulmate will be able to see the real you and be aligned with what you're all about long, 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 long into the future, rather than just short term. So I wish for all of you watching that you get the opportunity to really stand in your own presence and get honored and received for who you really are. And in the end, that would be the best that the universe could ask of you. So, thanks for having this time with me. And I really appreciate Jacqueline again sharing this opportunity with me, so that I can hopefully give you guys that inspiration to really dig deep into who you are and show up, so that the soul that you're looking for recognizes you too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leah, for being a part of this. I have felt so much energy just in our time of talking, and I can feel the ripple. I am just knowing that we are blowing up this group that is watching, because we have such a power and ability to break through our own barriers when we listen. So this is one of those messages I want you to hear again and again. And it's really fascinating, because the pounding would happen at certain times where it was almost like being pounded into your head of like, you need to hear this. And then it would quiet, like, okay, now absorb that. So the angels were aligning with everything that happened. And this was about that process of becoming aware of the soulmate you want is out there. He's wondering where you are. He's trying to help. She's stopping and waving you down, and you are looking the other way. So we are so excited to get your feedback, your insight, and all of your changes as you listen. But play this on repeat. There is so much more depth that I know it's going to take a few times to capture all that has been shared during this time. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.